Hello everybody and welcome to the Punchboard Report. My name is Blake Ryder. Today we're looking at War Chest, designed by David Thompson and Trevor Benjamin, published in 2018 by AEG. Now, War Chest is a very chess-like game. It's a bag building game where you're going to be building a bag of these chips and pulling these chips out and then placing those chips on the board, and then subsequently drawing more chips in effort to control the chips and manipulate the chips you have on the board. And you're essentially trying to gain control of these specific control points, these tactical control points, and the first player to get 6 of those control points under their control is the winner. It's a 2-player or 4-player game. I generally prefer it considerably at 2, but we'll discuss that a little bit later. Let's get this set up on the table right now, and then we'll come back for some thoughts. So this is the setup for War Chest for 2 players, and there are 16 unit cards in the game, and each game players are going to take 4 of these unit cards, and that's going to make up their squad, their team for the game. So each player, like I said, is going to get 4 of these cards, and you can select them however you want. You can go random, you can draft them, you can use any of the pre-configured, suggested games in the instruction manual, but each player is going to get 4 of these, and then take the corresponding tokens that correspond with the units that they select. So let's take a closer look at these units real quick. These are the 16 units that come with the game, and every unit has its own kind of special ability or characteristic, as well as a number over here, and that is the number of units of that type that you will get if you were to select this unit. So you'll get 5 marshals, and its special ability is that you can choose a friendly unit within 2 spaces of the piece, and it can attack using that friendly unit. So this one allows you to control friendlies, whereas the scout, you'll also get 5, and this one allows it to be deployed adjacent to a friendly unit. And conversely, the cavalry, you will only get 4, and this one allows you to move and then attack. So every player is going to have 4 of these, and then whichever 4 you get, you're going to take the corresponding chips that match the unit. So let's assume I selected the crossbowman, the scout, the swordsman, and the knight, and those are the 4 units that my opponent selected, and then the game will begin. So what are we trying to do here? You'll notice that either side of the board, we each start with 2 of these control markers on those respective spaces on our side of the board, and what we're trying to do is put 4 more of these control markers on these designated spaces on the board, and the first player to get 4 more of their control markers on the board will win. And just please note that we are not going to be using these darkened sections on the outside of the board. That is for a 4-player game. So the way this works, first thing we're going to do is we're going to flip the initiative marker to see who goes first. And in this situation, black, which would be me, would go first. And then each player is going to take 2 of each of these units and then place them in this nice kind of gold embroidered bag. And the opponent will do the exact same thing. And then you also have this kind of generic token that will go in the bag as well. And then the game will begin. So we'll shake the bag up and we will reach in. And then we will draw out 3 tokens. Okay? So you look at the 3 tokens and then you will act. So there are 3 actions in the game that are kind of 3 families of actions, I should say. The first family is called the placement actions. The second are discard face-up actions. The third is discard face-down actions. So placement actions. Like I said, we each have 3 of these tokens. A placement action would be to simply place one of the tokens on the board on a space that you control. Okay, so right now I only control those 2, so I can place it in either one of those, and that will be my turn. Another placement action is what's called bolstering. So if you have a matching piece, you can place it right on top of it, and now that unit of 2 would move kind of together. And what bolstering does is, let's say I'm here and my opponent was here. If my opponent attacked me and I'm bolstered, only one of my pieces would come out of the game, and now I would remain on the board. However, now if this was attacked, since it's a single piece, if I was attacked, this would come out of the game as well. So bolstering allows you to, if you're attacked, remain in that position on the board. So that is bolstering. Okay? So that is are the placement actions. Next is the discard face-up actions. So discarding face-up, let's assume that I have a piece on the board. Discarding face-up allows you to manipulate matching pieces on the board. So one discard face-up action is to move. So I can discard that piece and move the matching piece on the board 1 space. Now it's important to note that you can have at most 1 of each unit type on the board at any given moment. So I can never have 2 of my scouts on the board. So you're always going to be manipulating 1 piece. Note there is 1 unit in the game that allows you to have 2 on the board. That's kind of its special characteristic. But otherwise, you will have 1 of each unit at most on the board at any given moment. Okay? So moving is 1. Number 2 is attacking. So let's say that is like that, and let's say I have these 2 tokens in my hand. I could discard face up, and I can attack the piece next to me, and it will come out of the game. That is the next face up action. Third is perhaps one of the most important actions in the game, and that is taking control of one of those spaces. So again, if I'm on one of these spaces, and I have that piece there, I can discard face up, and then I can take claim of that, and now I control that piece, that space, I should say. And now, subsequently in the game, if I ever want to recruit and if I ever want to place a piece on the board, I now could place on any of these 3. As you gain more and more control markers on the board, you get more and more flexibility in terms of where you deploy. So now I have that one as well. And the last discard face-up action is to activate your tactic. So if you have a tactic, like this one is attack a unit 2 spaces away in a straight line, and the intervening space, which means that, cannot be occupied by a unit. So if you have a tactic on your piece, on your unit, that would you can activate it using a discard face-up action. Now, the third family of actions is the discard face-down actions. So let me actually take a step back and explain to you how the round structure works, because that is relevant here. So each kind of round, you could say, you're going to take 3 of your tokens out of the bag, act 3 times. Eventually, you'll have pieces on the board or pieces discarded face up or face down, and then you'll have no more pieces in your hand, and then you'll reach back into your bag. Your opponent will do the same, and you will take 3 more pieces. Now, whoever has the initiative at that moment will begin the next 3-turn segment. So one of the discard face down actions is you can take one of the pieces from your hand and discard any piece face down. It doesn't matter what it is. And then you can take initiative by flipping that. And now you, the other player, would begin essentially the next 3-turn segment. So when you discard face down, you flip it to your color to regain initiative, and then your opponent will do the exact same thing to gain their initiative. So that is the first discard face down action. The next discard face down action is how you recruit additional pieces into the game. So what you do with that is you take any piece you discarded face down, and then you take any one of your not yet deployed units, and then add it to your discard stack. And then later, when you are essentially out of pieces in the bag, you will accumulate all those pieces, and then you'll put them back in the bag. So here is how you are going to be adding pieces to your bag eventually. So that is the next discard face down action. And the last and finally action in the game is you could discard face down and pass, which is very actually relevant in this game, sometimes based on the board state. You're not going to want to actually do anything. You're going to want your opponent to act first. So you can discard face down and pass. So you're going to have your three tokens. You're going to act. You're going to do your 3 actions. You're going to take 3 more pieces out of the bag, and you will do the exact same thing. So, like I said, eventually you're going to have a bunch of pieces here, face up, face down. You probably will have added a few of these pieces there, and eventually you're going to have pieces here. There'll be pieces on the board, and your bag is going to be empty. At that point, you will take all the pieces that you have discarded or recruited. You will add them to your bag, and then you will shake it up, and then you will repeat the process. So you will go back and forth, and the first player to get 4 more, so a total of 6 of their control markers on the board will be the winner. So that was War Chest, and like I said, this game is very, very chess-like. It's chess-like in that you have to get pieces strategically positioned on the board, and then get, subsequent to that, you have to get the pieces that you need to manipulate those pieces in the board into your bag at the right time. That way they come through the cycle at the right moment. This game is all about bag balance and knowing what your bag has and when you'll be able to manipulate those chips most effectively. It's also very much about knowing what your opponent has, because if you know what your opponent has in their bag and what they're cycling through and how many of those chips they've eliminated and how many of those chips they've expended, then you know what they have and theoretically can do on their turn. Like, if I know that my opponent is controlling the center of the board, but they have already used the chips that would allow them to manipulate that chip, that's a good time for me to go in and go. This game is, it's also an area control game. You're controlling areas on the board. You are trying to prevent your opponent from advancing and gaining ground on you. And this is one of those games that can really flip on a dime. If you may have been controlling one spot the entire game, and then all of a sudden your opponent is able to get in and get onto that spot and take control of it, and then the tides flip, because you can do that. You can regain control of spots that your opponent already previously had. So it really creates a nice tug of war back and forth as people are trying to gain ground and gain, strategic positioning on your opponents. This game plays a 2 or 4. I significantly prefer it at 2. At 2, I think it's a great game. 4 is tough because, I think if you're playing with very experienced players and evenly balanced teams that all know what they're doing, I think it could be a solid experience. However, and I've played it 4 players several times, and unless, everyone knows the chips extremely well and what everyone could do, it's a really challenging to actually play the game effectively. Like when you're playing a 2-player, I have 4 units, they have 4 units, I know what I can do, I know what they can do, and then we play. When you're playing with 4 players, everyone has 3 units, so I have to know what I could do as well as what my teammate can do and what both my opponents could do, and be able to do that, to play that effectively and just know what every chip is capable of. It's a challenging experience with more players, especially if not everyone is on the same page. So that's what I would say if you're looking to play this 4-player. I would think it can work well under those circumstances. Let's talk now about the actual components of the game. The components are awesome. Like those weighted poker chips. I love poker. I'm a poker player. So weighted poker chips with a nice feel and tactile touch, really nice. And the box with this nice chest, solid feel with this magnetic lid and that chip tray and that gold embroidered green bag. This game has like an heirloom caliber to it. Like I want to like a quality that I want to like pass it on, generation to generation. It has that feel, that timeless classic feel to this game, and they achieve that extremely well. Really well done from AEG on that production quality. Other than that, I think there's a great amount of character variety with the different character unit cards. There are ones that are very good for long range, good for short range, better movement. There are ones that are better for deployment versus ones that allow you to manipulate other chips on the board. So there's a really big breadth of variety when you're playing this game, because you can draft cards, you can draft for your opponent. You can go random. You can go with the pre-configured battles that they give you in the book. A lot of different ways, a lot of different variety in the game. So overall, definitely recommend it as a 2-player game. 4-player game, under the circumstances I discussed, I think it's solid. So overall, if this sounded interesting to you, check it out. Thank you again for watching. My name is Blake Ryder.